First hospital I've ever worked in has a malnutrition ward, by the way. So people get admitted, especially the kids, get admitted to the hospital because they're sick. Once you fix the sickness, if they're obviously so malnourished, sending them back into the environment is a bad idea. They put them in the malnutrition ward. Where there are bags marked UNICEF, Save the Children, CARE, you name it, I've seen those organizations, that stuff is really there. So when you put money into those things, yeah, they do it. It happens. Next slide. This is how a lot of kids get transported there. Next slide. That's the market near where we work. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So most of these kids you're seeing in these pictures are there because of malaria in the hospital. Next slide. That's just that last picture is wait, go back. This is the anti-fraud picture. See? I really am. Next slide. So that's an ambulance. Doesn't really look like an ambulance, does it? And not only is it an ambulance, but how many people are on this ambulance? 4. So the driver, the mom with the sick kid, I think the sick kid is this one right here in front, being squashed between the two of them. And then there's another kid in the back. The mom has them because she's wrapped these things around her, which is how the Malawians carry the kids around.
Because he didn't want
And this is when we were 3.5 hours away by dirt road to Polish Town. So that's how he's going to get that kid to the hospital. But the kid had a seizure and a high fever, and so it wasn't the sort of thing you could do. Despite that, the family couldn't pay that. You know, it took them an hour to make a decision they were going to let us take that kid who was so sick to the hospital to take him care of because the mom had to go home. Next slide. See all the mosquito nets? That's inside the hospital. So there are happy moments in this hospital too. Lots of babies being born. And it's fun to take high school kids along so they can have a chance to see, experience it. We have high school kids that are, one high school trains them as EMTs, they get a chance to actually watch the birth. The others get the kid almost immediately after the kid's born, so they get a chance to see the baby coming out. Next slide. So this is a high school kid who's actually in the EMT training, so she's learning a little bit more medicine there. Next slide. So when we were getting ready to go to do this rural clinic, we had to stop for eggs. Why? Why are we bringing eggs? And I was such an idiot because I didn't really think it through. Why? It's protein, encased in a nice little shell that keeps it there. So everybody that came to this clinic got an egg to take home. This is a family, and this is one per person. Next slide. And this is to show you that no matter how hopeless you think things are, there are people out there that can figure out how to do anything with the right stuff. Isn't that cool? Next slide. So this is a high school kid. That's her blood going into this sick little child. I think that one survived, actually. Next slide. So this is the encore slide again, which is, I believe, on that flyer as well. Okay, next slide. So this is just to remind you again, yes, there's hope. Look at how much green there is there. These are all countries that are getting rid of malaria. And it's not happening just because the country's doing it. It's happening because people like you are putting money into it to make it happen. Next slide. 20 of the 97 countries with ongoing malaria transmission are classified by the World Health Organization as being either in malaria pre-elimination or elimination phase. Now also, most of you are old enough to remember smallpox. Probably had a little vaccine thing right there, like I do. It's gone. Polio is almost gone. So malaria is the next one. It can be gone. It's just a matter of will and money. Next slide. Next slide. That's me. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, that's if any of you have lost your power recently, I've been dealing with these people for a very long time. Solar powered flashlights. So you put it in the windowsill, battery's good for 2 years, and when you buy one, they give one away. And the reason it's important is not just because it's useful as a light, but if you're in Africa and you're living in a village, your kids can't study unless they have light at night, because when they come home from school, it's a long walk. So either you choose to burn firewood for that, which is scarce, and it's about 30% of the family's income, or the kid doesn't study, doesn't do well in school. How do you fix that problem? Get them a flashlight. So now you're giving the family money, and you're giving that kid a chance to go to school, so you're ultimately helping the future as well. So we every year bring them with us, and we leave them there.
Cindy, will you go back to slide just for a second so we can get this on video? Just want to make sure people know what that website is.
And I apologize for the website. We're getting it done for free. It's still a work in progress. It's kind of a boring website, I think, but it does have our mission statements on about what we're up to and what we're doing. Okay, next slide. Next slide. So I didn't mean this to be competitive. It was just to put the numbers in your head. Encore talks about $7 a person. For the IRS, for us, it's $1.50. But I don't want money that's going to Encore to come to us. And so you guys have to make your own decisions about it. But I'll be perfectly happy to take your money and put it to good use. And if you don't want to give it to me, that's also fine too. I'm delighted that you're willing to listen. Next slide. So I want to leave you with that. And just one other thought. Doug, when we talk, always tells me that he thinks that I'm special and Cindy's special. And maybe because of what we're doing we are, but I think of myself, and she thinks of herself, correct me if I'm wrong, as being just regular people. Just as, so we're not different from anybody in this room, or all the people that we know. The difference is that each one of us has been given an opportunity to do something where we can make a difference. And where I started in Nicaragua, somebody came up to me and said, we know some people that are interested in having Tufts Medical School do something there. Would you be willing to say, to help us out? That's all I did. I said yes. And then we grew up this program, one little step at a time. And Malawi's the same thing. So if I can do it, any of you can do it. You can start your own thing. You can certainly participate in your own thing. And you can do it here, or you can do it in Africa, or you can do it in Asia. There are a million ways to do this. But not doing it, that's a whole other story. So remember the quote I told you? It was a couple months ago. I found this in a book I was reading. And it's kind of a nasty quote because it makes me sort of a zealot. But basically it goes like this. This is from Voltaire. Every man is guilty of the good that he didn't do. So I'll leave you with that thought, and please fill these holes back. And thank you to my lovely assistant.
Yeah. Did you want these passed out?
Yes. And thank you. I don't know if you did this before I stepped into the room, but Nancy and Paul are on their way to a mission pretty soon too. Nancy, have you had a chance to talk about that yet?
No.
I'd like to give her a chance to tell you what they're planning to do, and also to give us a chance to have some quick dialogue, maybe for about 5-10 minutes. There may be questions that some of you have that you want to take a step further, but Nancy, would you mind just standing just for a second and telling folks, just so that we can get you on camera too, and we'll be able to see your face.
First, I was going to ask you how you got to Malawi.
Why Malawi as opposed to some other place?
Right.
Totally serendipitous. So I wanted to be a Peace Corps doctor in Africa and Asia. When I ended up in Nicaragua, that was serendipity. I started the free clinic with the Tufts Medical School. Somebody who was a doctor there had gone on the trip the year before with Bridges Community, which is an engineering course in Nicaragua. They were interested in getting involved in medical school. And so when it came time for me to do Malawi, I just basically sent an email out to all of my friends, former medical students, and said, who's got a country? And Malawi beat everybody else out. So, but it sure works for me. That's all.
So you work with the CDC there at all?
Nancy, we touched
That's weird to learn.
Let me sit down.
Well, I feel a little bit like what I do and what Paul and I do is throwing a starfish, whereas you're kind of taking care of the whole ocean. But,
Close.
and my husband Paul is an anesthesiologist and I'm an OR nurse, and so we've done a number of trips doing cleft lip and cleft palate surgery. And we're going to Malawi. We're going to Rwanda in March to do thyroid surgeries. They have a lot of problem with border there, and so we'll be doing that for about 10 days. 12
Awesome,
days.
that's wonderful.
And again, sort of serendipity. It's just an organization that Paul went to the Philippines with. It's Medical Missions for Children. It's a local Boston general area group. He went to the Philippines a number of years ago doing cleft lip palate surgery and was contacted because they needed people for this trip going to Rwanda. And so in talking to them, it was kind of like, oh, by the way, we need an OR nurse and what have you. So we'll be doing that. And actually our son, who is a senior at West Point, is going to be able to go and to do administrative and orderly type work with the project. So again, kind of serendipity, how we end up going to places. We've been to Guatemala a few different times, and Paul has been to a number of different places. But a lot of times it's just who you know, and when you're on a trip, you meet another person who's involved in another group, and then you go with that group. So there's a lot of good being done in the world.
Yeah.
That's way more than a starfish.
That's my motivation.
Because cleft lip, cleft palate, that'll kill them.
Right, right. It changes
And
their
it's
life.
very hard for them, if they do survive, let's say they just have a bad lip and they do survive, really hard for them to eat, depending on what kind of food mom and dad have, or, you know? So the malnutrition aspect gets even worse.
Right,
A lot of those cultures are not really accepting of that kind of disfiguring.
right.
Do you want me to stand back up, or?
Bye-bye.
Just to see if there are any questions. Yeah, why don't you let us stand? Okay.
Oh, just one question, and I asked this purpose. Last year, we did have a collection for
Imagine No Malaria.
And so was that your organization? I don't know what organization.
So we talked about both. This wasn't registered in Malawi, it was Imagine No Malaria. Once Brian learned about that particular initiative, I think he was really excited. I think we had about 3,000 that we offered Imagine No Malaria during Easter last year.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
That's the United Methodist one, that's got the green band right here for that.
Okay.
And that's, so the flyer that you received, that's our contact person for Imagine No Malaria, Bonnie Martin here, doing phenomenal work.
So our goal as a United Methodist Church was to raise 75 million by the end of this year, and we're over 65 million. So it's really
In February, so you're.
No, well, it
Oh.
started in 2010 or 2012, 2008.
Oh, I see. No, that's right.
It's been a few years, but even then, it hasn't been that long, and we thought it was an impossible goal. Our New England conference goal is 1 million, and we're at about 700,000, so we've got the final stretch to go.
There's more proof that things that seem hopeless and impossible are not hopeless and impossible.
Cambridge.
I think I recently read somewhere about an experimental program where they were trying to introduce millions or billions of genetically modified mosquitoes into the area to
Sterile males, yeah, it's a wonderful idea, isn't it? Because if you put sterile males into a breeding population of any kind, you're going to end up with a lot of females that think that they've had fun and they end up not reproducing. So John Connor, I just mentioned that to him, and he said that's been boondoggle. So I don't know why he said that. I just know that a boondoggle, it hasn't worked out. It's turned out to be a lot of money without a lot of effect. And I can't explain that why to, except that maybe there are enough non-sterile males out there that it doesn't make a difference.
Maybe there's some recognizable.
Individuals don't use, do they just, is it not legal, or individuals don't use any repellents there, other than the bed nets that are treated?
I've never seen them sold there. I think it's more just the cost problem than anything else.
Thank you very much for your attention. Brian, Cindy, thank you so much for coming.